Alright, so today we're going to be talking about evocation. Evocation is a thing that I get asked about a lot on the channel, so we're just going to do a quick little video about it, and I'm not going to teach you how to do evocation because you should be meditating, and if you're not meditating, you're not prepared for this video. But we're going to be talking about evocation and specifically what you guys need to know for when I'm talking about evocation, because I talk about evocation a lot and I realize that if you're not part of ceremonial magic, you have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. And I use a very specific language when talking about evocation, so I'm just going to make a video right now so I can point to it in future videos when I'm like, hey, what I mean by call them up is please check out the evocation video. This is that video. So, what is evocation? Evocation is a ceremony, usually. It is a ritual to call up and evoke a spirit to some kind of presence so that you can speak to them and communicate with them, ideally to get knowledge or to get them to do things for you. It really depends on the type of evocation, and it really depends on what you're evoking. Usually you're going to be evoking things like angels and demons and elementals. If you're doing the ceremonial perspective, you're going to be invoking planetary powers and things like that. Planetary powers being the general energy of something. So you would be invoking the element of Earth to assist in evoking Earth elemental spirits. You would be invoking the planetary of the sun to talk to solar spirits and evoke solar spirits. This is kind of, invocation is setting the mood. Evocation is picking up the phone and calling them. Important to note, old grimoires didn't really specify, they didn't really specify if you were invoking things or evoking things. However, I find it useful to make a distinction. Invocations are when you are invoking and you're calling a power or a spirit into your space. Evocation is when you are calling a spirit outside of your space. So you want evocation targets to be outside of your circle. You want invocation targets inside of your circle. Invocation has the word in, at least if you're writing it in English, at the beginning. Evoke has an E. It's not the same, right? So when I say invoke, it's in the circle. Evoke is outside the circle. That's a little confusing when you're starting out, but I find this distinction really helps explain what's going on. So, let's walk through an example. Let's say that I want to do an evocation of a Earth Elemental spirit for money, okay? I'm going to call up an Earth Elemental spirit. How do I do that? Well, the first step is prep work. You always prep for evocations, even if you're prepping 5 minutes beforehand, which you should never do. But, if you are going to do an evocation of a spirit, you always want to prep. You at least want to prepare your incense. You at least want to prepare your candles. You want to make sure you have everything nice and ready so that you can just go in, put on your ritual attire, whatever that may be. You could just get, if you need a robe and you don't know what kind of robe to go and buy, go on Amazon, pick up a bathrobe, and use that until you know what you want to do. Because if you use that bathrobe and you use that bathrobe to start out with, that is totally fine, and no one is going to judge you poorly because you're using a bathrobe when you were just starting out. Most normal rituals, like most ritual robes, if you get them from like Azoth Arts or like an Etsy store, are going to cost you $125. That was the last time I checked, and I know those prices have gone up because years ago I bought a robe that was like $90, and then semi-recently I had to buy another robe, and that robe ended up being $125. So those prices are going up. And the last time I checked, a bathrobe on Amazon is like $20, so you can save $100 if you just want a quick starter robe. No one is going to judge you if you just use it as a quick starter robe, as long as you treat it like a ritual robe should be treated. Once you have gone through and you have prepped all of your stuff, you've gotten all of your magical stuff ready, you've got your incense, you've got your candles, you need to know what words to say, because words are important, and you can say all of the words you want. However, if you've gone ahead and you've prepped all of your earth stuff and you start doing a fire invocation, well, guess what? You're going to get a pissed off fire spirit because you use the invocation of a fire elemental instead of the invocation of an earth elemental. So you want to make sure that you've gotten the right prayer so this doesn't happen. I've never had this problem, but I know some people have done similar things with planetaries, and the results are not normal. So you do the correct invocation, you've done your preliminaries, which are probably going to be the LBRP and the LIRH if you're doing a Golden Dawn style evocation, which I recommend people do because it's the simplest for me to tell them to do. If you're doing your preliminaries and you've done your invocation, you call up and then you do the actual evocationary section where you actually call the spirit outside and you call them into whatever you're calling them into. And then you're going to see them, assuming that you are calling them up using a method that will allow you to see them. Now, you're not going to see like a physical thing unless certain things have been fulfilled. These certain things are, you're going to be doing a bunch of preliminaries, which are going to be like fasting. You're going to be doing ritual cleansings the week before. You've planned this ritual out for months. You're doing it on the correct day, the correct hour, the correct moment in time. You're doing it for something that's really important, and then you will get something called the full Monty. Now, the full Monty is when a spirit shows up in full manifestation to where you are imagining them so vividly that it looks like you're actually seeing them right there. They're not phantasmal. You are literally seeing them, and if you're calling up an angel, this can look a little bit like it can kind of sort of come across like you just flashbanged yourself at seeing this angel, because they can be really intense. And the same thing goes for demons. If you've practiced and if you've fasted for a couple days and you've done all this spiritual cleansing stuff, you will see them more clearly. You will see them in the black mirror, and you will see them in however way you've managed to do it. Now, the issue is when that is undesirable, because sometimes you just want to call up a spirit to ask what you think is a very simple question, and it accidentally is the exact thing that spirit wants you to ask, and that spirit shows up more intensely. You can tone them down, however, usually when they're showing up in a very intense form, it's because you're asking a really important question from a spiritual perspective. A good example I like to give is asking the Archangel of Love and the Archangel of Venus, Haniel. If you ask her about the different forms of love, aside from, hey, Archangel Haniel, I just want a girlfriend. If you call Archangel Haniel and ask, hey, I want to understand love better, she can show up more intensely. And if that happens, you get a very weird situation where you get exactly what you ask for in the worst possible way. So I would be cautious when asking spiritual beings like, angels to do things for you and to learn spiritual truths like that, because depending on what you ask, they might be way more enthusiastic about the topic than you are. My general rule of thumb is if you think an angel would be enthusiastic and you wouldn't be a little bit cautious, right? If you're going to ask the Angel of Love how love works, they're going to be more willing to talk to you than if you're just asking for a girlfriend. If you're talking about how money works to the Angel of Money, they're going to be more willing to talk to you than if you're just asking for money. If you're asking how things work, not to do a thing, they're more willing to talk to you and they're more willing to show you more presence. The way you actually see them is you're going to see them in your mind's eye. You're going to hear them talk into your mind. Usually you're not going to hear an auditory thing unless something is, unless you get a full Monty situation where you just hear them in full manifestation. And if you do hear them in full manifestation, it means you've done something either right or incredibly wrong. There's such a thing as succeeding too much. You're going to see and talk to them in your mind's eye, and then you're just going to talk to them in whatever the languages you are most comfortable with. Now, you could talk to them in some form of Latin if you are completely fluent in Latin. However, I find that angels and demons and all those kind of spirits, with the exception of very few spirits that I personally don't work with, most of them know and speak English, and they're totally fine with speaking those languages, right? You do that, and then afterwards you send the spirit off to either go home or to do what you told them to do, depending on what you're doing. And you send them off, and you do banishings afterwards. After you're sure that they're gone, you'll feel them leave. Usually you will feel them leave. And then after they leave, you will do the banishings to make doubly sure that they're gone. And you will close out your circle, and you will go do something else. Probably play video games or scroll TikTok or whatever people are doing nowadays to just kind of vibe, you know? It's usually a good idea to ground after you do a evocation ritual, just because it's good practice. But other than that, that's about it. So yeah. Patreon in the description. Instagram in the description. I'm not on Twitter. I don't know when this video is going public on YouTube, but either this week or, sometime soon I should be on an episode of the Postmodern Iconoclast with Georgina Rose. So check that out. Link will be in the description. And as always, take care.